Welcome back, everybody. We are back. It's Coaching Unpacked. We've had the summer holiday. The sun has gone down. It's getting dark. It's getting damp. I feel like a little bit of deja vu because I think this is how I introduced it almost a year ago. But we're back after the summer holidays. We're back in term. And I'm here with Adam and Sarah. How are you both?
Good. Like really, really good. But you're saying like this reminds you of a year ago, but something's changed quite significantly from a year ago and even like from about 3 weeks ago. What's changed, Chris?
What's changed is that last week I became a head teacher.
Yay!
Yeah,
amazing
absolutely.
news.
Yeah.
Like brilliant news for you. Like amazing news for your school because there's no one better in the world to lead your school than you. And anybody that's ever been there or visited would agree with that. But how's it been? How has like week 1 and a bit of head teacherdom been?
It's been absolutely incredible. I was just saying off air that we're kind of in a position. So Sally, who's now the executive head teacher of community schools, more on that maybe in a few episodes' time. But she's just been the most supportive, brilliant person and has allowed me to kind of take the helm of the ship and steer it. And it's just been, I've had amazing support from staff and parents and students who are all kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a slight honeymoon period, but everyone's kind of on their tiptoes running around getting stuff done. I have never been more tired in my entire life. I'm sure that will get better and then get worse again. The bandwidth you need to think about it is something I've not experienced before, and something certainly that deputy headship hadn't prepared me for. But yeah, it's just been amazing, and thank you both, Sarah and Adam, because you've been texting me all week, making sure that I've been okay. So thank you. But yeah, it's been quite a change.
But like the fact that you've just described it as like taking the helm of the ship, I'm glad to hear that your passion for metaphors hasn't been dimmed by the experience.
Well, you got to read Chris's blog about week 1, which has some fantastic metaphors in. My favourite being everything to do with Lord of the Rings that's in there. And I've got EduPulse stuff that's coming out about being ahead as well. So anyone who's thinking about being ahead or has just started as a head or is ahead or just is interested in heads in general, they should read Chris's stuff because it's brilliant.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, anyone who's interested, I actually liken being a head teacher to being a ring bearer. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, read some books. So let's crack on with our episode, because one of the really, really good things that we enjoy, I think last time we spoke, we'd just been to Festival of Education. You guys have just got back from Research Ed at the weekend, and still in that really privileged position of people coming up and saying that they really like the podcast, they really like what we're doing, and they use it in their PD in school. So let's crack on with what the people want. So, Adam, what's the focus for today?
Okay, so sorry, maybe we can.
Right. I'm just going to point out for the listening audience, right, that I muted myself and coughed. If you're watching us, I muted myself and coughed, whereas Adam just decided to hock everything up in front of everybody. Talk about vulnerable and authentic leadership in front of everybody there, Adam.
That's it. Yeah. What you see is what you get, and all the rest of it. Right. So, coughing out the way. As a coach, sharing specific evidence from the lesson. That's essentially what we're looking at tonight. So we want to look at how we do that and how we do it well, ultimately as well. So where does it actually start? So it actually starts when you're preparing for coaching. So you make your notes while you're observing, and you're noting down the specifics of the lesson, what was said, how many children did something, like for example, how many put their hands up. You're noting down the time of certain events if it's applicable. And those specifics are really important because they allow you to form a hypothesis about what the issue is and then test it against the evidence about the impact on student learning. Okay, so then that also helps to trigger the teacher's memory when you share those specific details with them. And that helps to engineer insight on the issue. And it's deeply, deeply respectful to do it in that way because it communicates that you, as the coach, were paying really close attention to the lesson. So gathering and sharing really specific evidence from the lesson is what we're diving into tonight, and the importance of that.
Okay, great. That's really clear setup. But Sarah, we're doing it a little bit differently tonight. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're going to do, we usually do kind of one model. But today or tonight actually, we're going to do 2 short snippets from two different coaching conversations. One where no specific evidence is shared, and we call that the non-example, so that we can contrast it with an example where the coach does share really specific evidence, and we can look at the difference in the impact on the coachee.
Can I just put a hand up and praise non-examples, which I started using in my teaching again the other day after your talk at Festival of Education, Sarah, on our friend Azubel, and just talk about non-examples and using those for students. Their minds, it takes a little while for them to get into what a non-example is, and as soon as they go, oh, I get it, it's really powerful. I just wanted to raise a little woo. If I had a party popper, non-examples. Let's celebrate. Let's dive in. So I think we said, Adam, you're going to be the coach, and Sarah,
Yep.
you're going to be the teacher, and this is a non-example.
Okay, so let's move on to thinking about an area for development now. So your class discussion in the lesson, it didn't really work today. Kind of felt like only a few people contributed. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. Do you mean during the pair talk or when they all came back together?
It all kind of felt a little bit flat when you came back as a group.
Yeah, I think so too, actually. That class can just be a bit like that.
Yeah, they didn't really seem the most animated group, if I'm honest. I think you should probably try what I do and heavily praise those who do volunteer, because it'll ultimately incentivize the others. I do it all the time, and honestly, 9 times out of 10, it works an absolute charm.
Okay.
Cut there. Well, that made me feel a bit icky.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable when I think when you really put on a non-example like that and you're drawing everyone's attention to the fact that it's a non-example. And we probably do. I think what you see in there is lots of examples of less than great practice. But I think what's really important and interesting about it is that there'll be probably everybody listening to that will be able to pick out something in it that they've had experience of themselves, whether it's the kind of like vagueness of the, it all felt a little bit like, or whether it's just like the sort of judgmental negativity of it didn't work. I think everybody would find something in there that they can definitely relate to.
I guess
No.
is that the coach was really vague. They said like your class discussion didn't really work. And at no point did the coach kind of dig into what was meant by this or ask or offer any kind of specific evidence for it. And if one of our roles as a coach is to heighten the teacher's awareness of what happened and why, well, the coach hasn't really done a good job of that.
No, I saw that, and I think back to our kind of very first episode where I was saying, I was maybe raising a flag about coaches and people's fears about coaches, and that non-example works so well because it's like the antithesis of everything we're learning a coach shouldn't be. And the teacher wasn't even sure what the coach was talking about. Was it the pair talk or the whole class discussion? And that teacher would have had no faith whatsoever in this person who just stood up in front of them in complete vagary. It sounded so judgmental, and I really don't think I'd want to be on the receiving end of that kind of comment, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. It's absolutely right. And being vague can easily sound ultra judgmental. Being specific protects you against that. So also you'll notice that the vagueness permeates like through the whole conversation. So the coach says it felt a bit flat, and the teacher agrees. They can be a bit like that. So none of that vagueness is supporting the teacher to work out what the issue is and why. And why that's the issue, which is supposed to be the point of that part of the conversation. Like, what's the issue? Does the teacher believe that have they identified the issue, and do they believe that that's the issue? Do they know why it's an issue? Because if you've got those two things, then you'll get commitment to solving the problem. And no way can you do that with that amount of vagueness there.
And I suppose as well, sometimes when you have that vagary coming from a coach, that might sometimes be coming from the place that they're unsure themselves. They don't want to be offending the other person. But I really want to wipe that from my mind, from my memory, because it, like I said, it made me feel a bit icky. So can we see a better version, please, you two? Can we please see Adam is a coach sharing, as we said, specific evidence, and let's see if we can see the impact on Sarah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's zoom in on the class discussion around the key causes. Tell me about your goal during that part of the lesson.
Well, I wanted a really good debate around the causes, but I just couldn't get it out of them.
Okay, so tell me about what happened.
I can't quite remember exactly what happened, but I know I tried to get their answers from them after the pair talk, and almost no one wanted to share.
Yeah, that's totally normal not to be able to remember exactly what happened as well, because you're so invested in that particular moment. But here's what I noted down. Hopefully it rings a bit of a bell. So you said, turn to your partner and discuss which cause you think was most significant. So every child that I listened into was discussing the causes and weighing them up using your key vocabulary, which was up on the board. You then called the class back together and you asked, who'd like to share? And I noticed 3 children volunteered. You chose Luca, and Luca said it was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand because it started the war. And then you said, yes, that's a good point. Who else? And at that point, no other hands went up.
That's what I said, wasn't it? I said, who'd like to share? Okay. I don't think that is going to get them to be brave and speak up. They'd all discussed with their partners. I could have gone round and like teed some of them up to kind of share some of the great stuff that well, you and I were hearing. And what did you say that I said when Luca answered?
Yeah, you said, yes, that's a good point. Who else?
So I think that might have made it sound like there was only really one answer and Luca had got the answer. So no wonder no one else volunteered.
So I think we might have come to a similar conclusion then, based on that specific evidence from the lesson, that who'd like to share and the summing up of Luca's answer might not be the most effective way to get the children to have that rich discussion, which you said at the start was your goal. So let's think about how we might be able to do that better and better serve that goal.
And cut. Yes. Love that. Because I think what was really clear is, Adam, the specific evidence you gave to Sarah Coachee really allowed her to hone in on where the issues might be. Loved it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So just relaying like what actually happened very specifically, the way that Adam did, can actually spark insight on the issue from your coachee. It supports the coach and the coachee to kind of come up with a remedy for a problem that they better understand. In the non-example, we obviously heard a really vague diagnosis of the issue and a really random kind of sounding remedy. Why like that thing that the coach sort of proposed? It sounded just a sort of personal thing of like, I usually do this, you do that, because they didn't really understand what the problem was. So here, because we've shared that specific evidence as a coach, there's much more likelihood of, the likelihood is higher that we'll actually get to the problem and therefore an actual useful solution.
Okay, so all of this is sounding a little too good to be true at the moment. It's kind of ringing as kind of like, yeah, obviously. Are there kind of times where you might relay specific evidence and the coachee, maybe because they're feeling defensive or they truly believe it, they sort of minimize the evidence you've given? That would be quite a different example from what we just heard, wouldn't it? So what, if that was the case, what would we do then?
I think this is a really, really good question because I've definitely had this happen and seen it happen. I'm sure Adam has as well. Where like you share kind of some specifics and someone's like, oh no, I don't think it was quite like that, or I don't think that's what it meant, because there's always an interpretation of the specific evidence. So I think next episode we should tackle this, because I think this is something people worry about a lot. Let's like kind of tackle how to use specific evidence to keep coaching on track, and Adam and I will reenact an example of how to do this, like really respectfully but not wavering from a commitment to improving teaching and learning. So sometimes you can have things like, oh, it doesn't matter too much that happened, that's not a problem, when we know it is a problem for teaching and learning, and it's our kind of commitment between coach and coachee that you are always doing what's best, or what you think is best for student learning. So let's do that next episode, because that's a really good one to dig into.
Nice.
Yeah, I think also just to reiterate, so so I was just going to say, so being able to coach using specific evidence means that you need to have prepared really well from the get-go as well. So in the show notes, I think we'll link to a webinar that Sarah and I ran on preparing for coaching a little while ago. Also, last week's Coaching Cut Substack was on sharing specific evidence. So you've got a couple of clips to learn from, and for teaching and learning leads to share with your staff if that's what you want to do with it as well.
So yeah, we hear lots of things from teaching and learning leads across the country about using coaching cuts, and which is the Substack, and this podcast to kind of they train their coaches essentially. So keep your feedback coming, and if there's anything you want us to specifically work on, then just let us know. Also, just to say, we were at Research Ed on Saturday, which was amazing. There were so many good sessions. It was like mind blowing. Still thinking about some of them now. They're just like, yeah, incredible. But we had someone, really, really nice lady, come up at the end and just basically say how much she loved this podcast and how she listened to it all the time. And her main, I think, sort of reason was she just loves Chris Passey. She just thinks hilarious. And we all just like, well, Adam and I just laugh politely, don't we? But like, she finds him really. So, I mean, hats off to you, Chris.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful that some people out there see sense. You and Adam can join my wife in not laughing at me. That's fine. It's not a problem. As ever, you two, it's an absolute pleasure. A nice short one today, but for me, one that really succinctly puts across a really important point, which is without specific evidence, we allow vagary to creep in. And when that happens, we just get disaffected coachees. And if we get disaffected coachees, then any progress is just going to be stopped dead in its tracks. Just did that on the spot. That's what I think, and that's what I feel. I'm going to tap my news desk papers. That's us done for this evening. We'll be back really, really soon with some more Coaching Unpacked. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye. Bye.